Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and here's my number 6 director on my top 10 list of directors, and it's Martin Scorsese. Now, I have a lot of films to talk about, so I'm gonna go chronologically and just go through this, but starting off, Scorsese, what I love about his films are they have so much life and character in themselves as films with the musical choices. Have to have the Rolling Stones, right? And how he's able to portray these interesting, powerful, aggressive, dynamic characters and how they interact with each other. Nobody can really bring to life voiceover quite like Martin Scorsese, and that's why a lot of films I'm not the hugest fan of narration throughout, but he's able to make it really work and bring interesting dynamic to the film because you're never quite sure if you're supposed to ever trust any of his narrators, but the thing is, we're along for the ride with them, and for a long time he's been able to do all of these things with these films and do it impeccably, going all the way back to Mean Streets, which was his first big film with Harvey Keitel, and starting his relationship with Robert De Niro. Always thought it was a solid film. Absolutely love Taxi Driver. That's the earliest evidence to me that Martin Scorsese had something special. Robert De Niro, he gets an amazing performance out of De Niro, and the jazzy music, the voiceovers, the cab drives, everything is so haunting, and gets a great performance out of Jodie Foster as a young woman. Harvey Keitel is the creepy pimp, and everything, including leading all the way up to that explosive finale to this film, building up, building the tension, building the intrigue. And Scorsese is an expert at creating very terrible characters that somehow are not, maybe not likable, but we're along for the ride and are captivated by their their charisma and what brings them to the screen. And this is a really tortured character, Travis Bickle, that Scorsese brings to the screen. Don't shoot the speaker here in this video, but I'm not a fan of Raging Bull, and I feel like I'm gonna have to watch it again because the one time I did watch it, I really did not like it, and it really took me out of the film. That's my one thing about Scorsese. I think sometimes he goes a little too far, making somebody unlikable and really trying to make them work, but here, it didn't really work for me, and I wasn't totally into Jake LaMotta and his story, but then bouncing back with two very interesting choices from Scorsese here, including The King of Comedy, where Robert De Niro plays a slimy, up-and-coming comedian bouncing off of Jerry Lee Lewis, and it's an interesting kind of thing, like Taxi Driver, with this outsider who's really uncomfortable and has this ideas of violence and stuff like that. And violence is such a big thing in Scorsese films, and it's like, does he glorify it, or is it really like biting commentary on this kind of violence? And then you have something like The Last Temptation of Christ, which there's a few films in his filmography that are like this, and the last one I'm going to talk about is his most recent film, but this is a very religious film, but in a very interesting, different way, and how this portrays this religious figure of Jesus Christ. And Willem Dafoe gives such a great performance, and this is just a powerful film, and Harvey Keitel pops up in it as Judas, and just powerful and interesting how this film goes about. And then you have Goodfellas, and Goodfellas, I can't say much more about Goodfellas, but Joe Pesci, Robert De Niro, and just Ray Liotta are also powerful. Joe Pesci is one of the scariest characters to watch on screen, and Scorsese is able to capture that. Those long takes, such great long takes in that restaurant, and Give Me Shelter. The music choices are always perfect in a Scorsese film, and that's really what captures it. And honestly, I really love Casino as well, bringing back Pesci and De Niro as gangsters, this Casino. And Scorsese knows how to make a really long film and make them feel like they feel like they're an hour and a half. And some of these push 3 hours. Casino's almost 3 hours. Does not feel it. The energy that Scorsese brings, that drives the pacing of his films. Cape Fear, Max Cady, just De Niro is so frightening and powerful. And I love just a small detail of bringing Gregory Peck and Robert Mitchum back from the original film and these little small cameos in this film. But Nick Nolte and especially Robert De Niro really steal the screen in this film, and such a powerful film. Gangs in New York is a film that I want to love so much, but the third act kind of falls apart for me. But one of my favorite characters of all time, Scorsese brings to life Bill the Butcher with Daniel Day-Lewis, and the performances in that, and this new connection that he makes with Leonardo DiCaprio brings in such an interesting new muse for him once his time with De Niro wrapped up with Casino, and then Scorsese brought in the era of Leo with Gangs in New York, and him going up against Daniel Day-Lewis with The Aviator. Howard Hughes, such an intriguing character, and they're able to balance such a compelling biography, this biopic of a film. And I'm going to say I absolutely love The Departed from start to finish. The cast is amazing. Having Jack Nicholson pop up in a Scorsese film, genius. And DiCaprio, Damon, Baldwin, Mark Wahlberg, one of the best performances I've ever seen out of him, and Scorsese's able to get that out of him with this perfect role for him. Shutter Island, I think, is an extremely intriguing story and really, really well done by Scorsese. Hugo, I love that film so much. A kid's movie by Martin Scorsese? It seems really weird. It's a film about the love of cinema, though, and it's perfectly put together by Scorsese and able to really make something special out of it. Then we have Wolf of Wall Street, this film of excess, and just from start to finish, 3 hours of non-stop ballooning of all these things, and really capturing like what excess and darkness can happen in business, and this crazy unreliable narrator of Jordan Belfort, and just the humor. That's another thing. The humor is so fantastic. It's so dark and biting in Scorsese films, but it's so hilarious. There's so many hilarious sequences throughout that film, whether it's talking about crazy expensive dinners or talking about Steve Madden and all kinds of different things. And then silence. This is another film out of the same vein as Last Temptation of Christ. This film about faith, Andrew Garfield, Adam Driver, Liam Neeson, and such a powerful film, and how so differently the music is almost non-existent, but the use of silence is so powerful and is so beautiful and well shot. All of what Scorsese is able to do, he created a whole genre of gangster movies that start with The Godfather with Coppola, but Scorsese perfected this idea, and his two muses of Robert De Niro and Leonardo DiCaprio, two of the best actors of their generations, and these relationships with those. I can't wait to see The Irishman with De Niro and Pacino and Keitel and Joe Pesci, and coming out on Netflix. I wish I could see it on the big screen, but I'm super excited about that. Scorsese is just such a genius and so talented, and such a long career, and he's a student of film, and that is such a beautiful thing, and this is why I love Scorsese. Keep checking in on these videos of my top favorite directors. Coming next week, number 5, you'll have to check out to see who it is.